On to the next one then, which is the Silver State tag update. Bob Haughian.
Commissioners, again, Bob Haughian for the record, Chief of the Operations Division. This summer, Director Mayer asked that I head up a couple of working groups, one for the apprentice license and one for the Silver State tag. And we've had a couple of meetings. And in your package, the document you have is just a tool that we created to kind of help us keep track of some of the high-level activities that we're doing. Most notably, try to keep an eye on the timing, how we want to do this, and the roles of various players. Yes, sir.
I don't know, do we all get the documentation?
I picked the document up on the table, but I don't think it was included.
The commissioners didn't get any documentation.
I got an email.
Oh, it was on the, okay, it wasn't in the packet, it was in the email, okay.
Oh, I apologize for that. Let me make sure. Do all the commissioners have a hard copy of that?
The documentation wasn't ready for the mail out. We're a slave to the timeline of getting things mailed out. So we followed up with an email to each one of you with that package.
Maybe we can get copies.
We're going to grab those. I believe so. Okay. Well, I'd like them to take a look at it here for a second. I mean, this is information, but can I just see again who has a copy based on the,
No, nobody has a copy. Got it.
Test. You hearing me now on the speaker? You're not, are you?
Speak up.
We'll check with it. Oh, here. It's a fluke, I guess. Okay. Well, let me take just I'll back up a little bit. The document you have there, it's just a couple of pages long. It is just a working document to help us identify the time frame of activities that we're doing and to identify those that are participating with us. So on the first page, it just gives kind of an overview of the direction that I have from the director. And then the makeup of the working group. We've met twice. Not all participants have been involved in this, and you see it's proposed. I mean, it's not every time do we have these folks. The most recent meeting we had was September 11th, and that included some folks on my staff, law enforcement. Commissioner Cavan was a part of it. Don Sefton was a part of it to help us with the details. And Chad Bliss, the proponent, he called in because what we want to do is try to kind of stay on track with what he was looking for. So the next couple of pages just show a timeline. On the second page there, basically those first three events have occurred. These are just working items for us. To include most recently our 11 September meeting, where the intent was to really start exploring the proposed language for CGR. And as a group, we collectively agreed that maybe the smarter thing to do is come up with two different proposed sets of language for a CGR. And if you look in that bottom side, there's two options there. Basically, make the Silver State process a separate application and to look closely at the fee process. And this option as a separate application process would include those folks who are currently in a waiting period. And if I can back up a little further, you may recall seeing in the past some dollar breakouts that were just estimates at the time from Don Sefton. In that first option, it was thought that that would be around $18,500 for programming. And then the second option was to make it a checkoff box on the application, and that one would exclude those in the waiting period, and just by design of the process, and that was estimated to be about 12,500. So if I can take you to the next page talks about just what we anticipate as the timelines. So the early part of October, we hope to have the language laid out for the two options. Maureen Hullinger is working that now. And we'll meet with our working group in early October. And the intent is, once we're satisfied with those two options, then we're going to go out to the cabs with the two options, because we thought it important that with two options, we wanted to have the cabs looking at it and the cabs making an eventual recommendation to you as the commission. Then the next line, the projected date of 5 December, that's when we're looking at the next commission meeting, and that's when we were counting on the cabs to have some recommendations to you, for you to at least identify the desired option that we want out of that. And sometime shortly after that commission meeting, then we would go to LCB with the recommended option from the commission. And that process, as you're aware, takes about 30 days. So we anticipated their review, and any edit would take us into maybe the first or second week of January, depending on a holiday time for them. We then would look at that sometime in January, just to make sure that what they come back with, if they've changed anything, which you saw on, for example, the CGR this morning, that we could expect to see that, and we just want to make sure we don't lose the intent on that. And then in the February or March meeting, based on the newly adopted schedule this morning, then we would go through the workshop process for the commission to refine that particular item, that particular requested option. So then on to the last page. Once we're to that point, then in the March or April time frame, we're showing February or March, it'd probably be the March or April time frame, then we would end up going back to LCB's committee, that subcommittee for review of regulations. And once we've got that back, that's when the programming would start, and the associated testing that would go on with that. So we're just showing that as the spring and summertime. Of course, as we progress on this, we'll have more refined timeframes for you. And associated publication activity. And then I want to point out, I've got a typo on that last line there for implement. We say March 2010. Of course, that's March 2011. So, again, the intent was to just give you an idea of where we are on timelines, and to identify, those that have some roles and responsibilities with this.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted him to go through this process, because we started thinking, well, boy, we could have this thing ready to go for this coming draw period. And obviously, when you lay it out and actually see how much time LCB and the time it takes to write the regulations and for your process to go on, it's really only going to be, wouldn't be ready even if we started today till 2011. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we're interested in, we're watching, even though we're on the phone, we're watching Chad's body language. He's a proponent for this, and of course he wants to see this move as quickly as possible, as do many folks, but he clearly understood that these steps here are all the required steps through the process, and I think he was pleased when we got to the point where we broke them into the options, and to give the cabs the opportunity to look at those options, and for the cabs to make recommendation to you, the commission, on which is the desired option to go with.
Thank you. Any questions by anybody on the commission? Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, just an observation, and it's not under your department, but it's certainly part of this whole process is somewhere along the line here, we want a calendar in. The commission has to make a quota and we may want to just add that in so that we know when that
Certainly.
has to occur. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question in general about the law. After its passage, it was a multi-part law, and this is one segment of that law. And I just want to check with the DAGs how all that works, is we can go ahead and implement this section of the law despite anything else going on with the other sections of that law that was passed. That's the way this can work? We can go ahead and implement one portion of it. I'm glad I have a translator. Translates that into English.
My understanding is that there's 3 different programs that were laid out in the one law, so each one would proceed along its own track.
Each one is completely separate. They all proceed along their track, and they're relatively independent of each other.
Correct,
Is
other
that-
than they came from the same enabling legislation.
That was my understanding, but I wanted to hear it from one of you folks. Thank you.
Any other commission comments? Any comment from the audience on this? If not, thank you, Bob.